moja. Sasa si ni kupunguza chakula, gharama ishuke chini. Ndio tunaomba sasa gharama iteremke chini, isiwe ati gharama iko juu, mama wa chakula anaumia.
Climate change is also one of the main cause of famine in the country, the extent of it depriving many of meals. In Marsabit and Baringo counties, for example, residents and their livestock are suffering, many of them living in fear and afraid of an uncertain future.
Tunaona shida kubwa kwa njaa. Haijawahi tangu sisi tusaliwe wasema wetu walikitoi. Hatujawahi kuona kiangazi kama hii. Labda ni ile 1959 mpaka 60 wakati tulipata ile unga ambayo ililetwa na Amerika.
Watu wamekufa kabisa. Ara watoto ya shule iko moja hajaenda shuleni kwa sababu ya njaa. Unaona watoto wako asubuhi anaamka ameshinda kutembea kwa sababu ya njaa. Watoto wako nyumbani kwa sababu ya njaa. Hakuna mtu anakubali mtoto wake anaenda na njaa.
Nilikuwa ng'ombe 58 ng'ombe yangu na leo sina moja.
But even as food gets scarce, there is another problem that many face as the drought persists, the lack of water.
Kwanza kwa sababu ya njaa, kiu ya maji. Unaona hata chakula, hata maji yenyewe hawana. Shule hakuna maji, hakuna chakula. Nyumbani huko hakuna chakula, hakuna maji, hakuna lishe bora, hakuna chakula, hakuna maji. So actually hawa wanakuwa affected.
The drought situation in the country has forced the government to lift a ban on the production of genetically modified organisms and foods, GMOs, banned in the country in 2012.
First of all, there are specific GMOs that are improved for drought tolerance. So it's one, there are some, maize varieties that are improved to be drought tolerant, but also incorporated with the traits of insect resistance.
The lift on the ban has sparked mixed feelings for Kenyans, leaders and health professionals.
This decision was quickly rushed, and we did not see the consultation with Mama Mboga. We did not see the consultation with the Mutu wa kuuza kiosk. We have not seen the consultation with the border people. If any member of these groups has been consulted, then it's good that we are informed. We did a survey and we asked consumers if they are willing. Majority of Kenyan consumers are not willing to eat GMOs. Majority, and by majority I mean more than 50.4%. This is a serious majority. So in whose interest is this decision made?
Mambo ya GMO mpaka sisi kama Wakenya tuseme tumekataa.
Some experts, however, say that GMO foods are safe for human consumption, saying that Kenyans should desist from listening to opinion not backed by research.
GMOs do not cause cancer. And I don't think there is any one known cause of cancer. But that said, there are serious, there are people with fears and fear, and genuine concern about health. And, scientists do not take this lightly. They deliberately test the GM crops that are developed. There are tests that are done to ascertain.
There is a need to assist Kenyans and especially those who live in dry areas so that they can live dignified lives as the condition continues to worsen.
Sio ng'ombe ndio sisi nalilia sana. Tunalia serikali iangalie watu sababu inabaki siku chache. Ama hiyo mwezi mwingine ijayo utakuta watu wameanza kufeli, especially kama watoto kama hawa wadogo wao hawana namna nyingine isipokuwa wanategemea hii kitu inaitwa. Naomba sasa samana yake imeisha.
Hapo shida ya kiangazi. Ng'ombe imekufa, mbuzi imekufa yote. Hata mtoto amelala bila chakula.
Watu wanatembea 22 kilometers kwenda kutafuta ile matibabu. Kwa sababu the only dispensary ambayo tuko nao hapo ni na Marine, and 22 kilometers from here. So hata hawa wanaathirika sana.
Now, top politicians are among Kenyans whose SIM cards were deactivated following the October 15, 2022 deadline issued by telecommunication companies Safaricom, Airtel, Kenya and Telcom had set Saturday, October 15, 2022 as the deadline for SIM card registration, as Collins Lusweti tells us.
Thousands of Kenyans' cell phone lines have been suspended after the October 15, 2022 SIM registration deadline elapsed. Leading telecommunications company Safaricom sent messages to its affected clients asking them to visit its mobile shops to have the blocked lines reactivated. Those affected say they were unable to transact on M-Pesa, access data bundles or send messages.
Mwenyewe nimeamka asubuhi nikakuta line yangu imefungwa. Kwa hivyo sasa mimi kwenye biashara yangu siwezi kufanya malipo kwa sababu gani? Line yangu imefunga.
Naweza kuathirika sana kwa sababu mimi biashara zangu mingi ni za simu. Na ikiwa kufungwa kwa line zingine zimefungwa kwa sababu Wakenya wengi sahii wanaathirika. Sababu hii mambo ya communication, kupata makazi wengi, kupata ajira zao ni simu. Kuna kama sahii kama pesa transaction, siku hizi watu wengi wanatumia pesa ya simu.
Top politicians are among Kenyans whose SIM cards have been deactivated. On Sunday morning, Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei complained on social media that his Safaricom line had been switched off. Lawyer Abed Nasir Abdullahi, Makueni Governor Mtula Kilonzo Jr. and former Wajir Women Representative Fatma Gedi among those who declared that they were victims of the closure. Those affected now want the process made easy.
Naomba tafadhali kama Safaricom waweze kurahisisha hii mambo ya self registration kama samani, ngarau kama watai-upgrade iweze kuwa mpaka yule mtu wa simu ndogo, mtu wa katururu yani, aweze kuwa na access za kufanya self registration. Ukiweka eti lazima mtu afike kwa duka, itakuwa kuna wengine wako mbali, mtu hana uwezo wa kufika kwa duka, labda ameitiwa kazi mahali, line anahitaji maybe replace ama afanye nini. Sasa ikikuwa tena ni afike kwa duka, inakuwa ni kazi ngumu kwake.
According to the Communication Authority, the move will allow the government to weed out fraudsters and criminals using unregistered cell phones to cause harm. Affected subscribers still have a chance to re-register their lines. However, the process will be longer compared to what it would have taken to re-register. Collins Lusweti, TV47.
President Ruto now says the government will operationalize the Hustler Fund on December the 1st to ensure the availability of credit to small business at single-digit rates. The fund, according to him, is aimed at spurring reforms in financial lending, particularly to low and middle-income Kenyans. Ruto also affirmed his promise to delist Kenyans from the CRB list due to defaulted loans. Mike Agungo with the details.
Speaking in Kericho, where he was attending an interdenominational prayer and Thanksgiving service, the head of state says the fund will be available for all Kenyans, who will then repay with lowered interest fees.
Hustler Fund ninaipangia vizuri. Tarehe 1 Disemba. Tayari Hustler Fund tutaifanyia launch tarehe 1 Disemba. Na saa ile mimi ninapanga vile mutapata hiyo pesa, na nyinyi mujipange vile mutapokea hiyo pesa. Vile ya kupokea hiyo pesa ni ujipange na hustle yako.
Ruto said the Hustler Fund will help in lowering the cost of credit for small businesses, ensuring that everyone can borrow money at a reasonable rate and hence resolve the shortage of resources for managing small businesses in the country.
Ati unangojea pesa ya serikali ya bure? Hiyo hakuna. Hii ni pesa ya kufanya biashara. Na tunafanya biashara na urudishe pesa.
Ruto said he has put in place a specific department to handle cooperatives, small and medium-sized enterprises, SMEs, chamas and SACCOs.
Ujipange either kwa chama, ama kwa SACCO, ama kwa cooperative. Hiyo ni njia moja. Unaweza kujipanga pia kama mtu binafsi. Tunaelewana? Na utapata pesa ya hazina ya Hustler Fund. Lakini si pesa ya bure. Kama kuna mtu hapa anafikiri atapata pesa ya bure, Unasikia wewe?
President William Ruto made the pledge to create a hustler fund in his 2022 campaign manifesto.
Kwa sababu hii pesa sasa ya biashara tutagawa 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote.
And followed up the commitment in his inauguration speech on September 13. Ruto also affirmed his promise to delist Kenyans from the CRB list due to defaulted loans. This comes amid looming threats to close Shylock businesses, citing heavy interest rates.
Wale mashailok ambao walikuwa nasumbua nyinyi, wanalipisha sijui interest ya 1,000 per year. Sasa hiyo interest itakuwa chini ya 10% per year. Tunaelewana? Mutapata pesa, lakini kila mtu atalipa kwa mpango. Wameniahidi ya kwamba watu 500,000 in the next 14 days, watu 500,000 wataondolewa kwa blacklist kwa ile madeni walikuwa nayo, na utakuwa na nafasi sasa ya kujipanga. Ulipe mambo deni polepole bila ya kukatazwa kuendelea na biashara yako.
He also promised to sustain his engagement with lenders to ensure interest rates are reasonable. Mike Kagwango, TV 47.
National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula is today morning expected to give a ruling on the legality of Musalia Mudavadi's prime cabinet secretary slot after the Azimio coalition and civil society groups said it does not exist in law. Wetangula's ruling, expected before the vetting of President William Ruto's cabinet nominees begins, is expected to answer the question of whether it's legally proper for him to appear before the committee for vetting. Our senior political affairs reporter, that is Apollo Kamau, reports.
Before Monday's cabinet nominees vetting kicks off in the morning, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, who is also the chair of the Committee on Appointments tasked with the vetting, will be making a ruling to seal the legal contention on Musalia Mudavadi's prime cabinet secretary slot created by President William Ruto through an executive order. The ruling by the Speaker comes after Thursday's inaugural sitting, where the Azimio coalition questioned the legality of Mudavadi's slot, saying it's not recognized by the law and has left the committee in a dilemma on how to vet Mudavadi.
But I have a lot of questions, critical questions. I will tell them it's not going to be easy. The questions, and I will tell the people of Kenya, we are not a rubber stamp. The parliament is not a rubber stamp. Particularly this parliament is not a rubber stamp.
The matter, now a subject of public debate, has also attracted the civil society's attention, with the executive director of the Kenya National Civil Society Centre, Suba Churchill, in a statement saying, and I quote, "The Kenya National Civil Society Centre calls on the National Assembly Committee on Appointments not to legitimize attempts by the executive to establish the position of Chief Cabinet Secretary through unconstitutional, illegal and unprocedural maneuvers by proceeding to vet Honorable Musalia Mudavadi as planned for on October 17, 2022. Suba continues, while Article 152 of the Constitution provides that the Cabinet consists of the President, the Deputy President, the Attorney General, and not fewer than 14, and not more than 22 Cabinet Secretaries. At no point is there a mention of Chief Cabinet Secretary as a substantive member of the Cabinet, as the nomination of Honorable Musalia Mudavadi seems to suggest. Mudavadi's spokesman, Kibisu Kabatesi, however, dismissed the claims, saying, and I quote, "The issue of unconstitutionality does not arise because the President has a prerogative to name and restructure the Cabinet in a manner he deems fit." Governance commentator and advocate of the High Court, Dr. Alutalala Muhwana, also weighs in on the legal contention, saying, and I quote, "Pursuant to Articles 131 and 132 of the Constitution, the incoming President has executive authority to craft his new government. He did so via Executive Order No. 1 of 2022. Dr. Alutalala further says, the executive order creating Musalia Mudavadi's office of Prime Cabinet Secretary is therefore hinged on this and analogous constitutional provisions. Any interpretation imputing legal impurities in its establishment is most probably originating from considerations outside accurate legal reasoning.
And I want to assure Kenyans this will be an open, transparent, and very accountable process in the National Assembly. And it's open to the public.
Others to be vetted on Monday after Mudavadi are cabinet nominees Justin Muturi, Aden Duale, Dr. Alfred Mutua, and Alice Wahome. The integrity question will form a crucial part of the vetting, with Azimio training their guns on a number of nominees whose integrity has raised questions, among them Aisha Jumwa, Mithika Linturi, and Professor Njuguna Ndung'u. Apul Kamau, TV47.
Now, President William Ruto has told off Azimio leader Raila Odinga over his criticism of the Kenya Kwanza government, saying that for the more than 30 days Ruto has been at the helm of the country's leadership, he has been undoing the mess allegedly created by the former president, that is Uhuru Kenyatta-led regime, and in which he accuses Raila of being part of. The president was speaking in Kericho with a host of other Kenya Kwanza leaders in a Thanksgiving service, as Mogi William reports.
President William Ruto Sunday toured Kericho County for a Thanksgiving service in his first visit to the region since being elected into office. The president was accompanied by the second-in-command Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and a number of Kenya Kwanza allied leaders. Ruto, while at his home turf, went full swing, taking a swipe at the ODM leader Raila Odinga over his recent criticism on the conduct of the Kenya Kwanza government. Ruto telling off Raila, saying that they are focused in undoing the mess allegedly created by Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta.
Nataka niwaambie watulize boli. Mambo bado. Uchumi ilikuwa imesambaratika. Tuko na madeni kutoka hapa mpaka sijui wapi. Kilimo ilikuwa imeharibika mpaka bei ya unga ikafika shilingi 200 kwenda mbele. Mambo ya usalama ilikuwa imezoroteka.
The president calling on Raila to give him time and space to work on bettering the economy. Raila had earlier stated that Kenyans are ready to move on from the August polls. However, Raila Sunday said that President Ruto should cease his lamentations about the previous administration.
Wale ambao tulishindana na wao watulize boli. Waliharibu nchi yetu, watupatie nafasi tuifanyie ukarabati na tuipange iweze kwenda mbele. Walikuwa na miaka 5 ambayo walitumia kuharibu mambo ya nchi yetu. Uchumi ikaharibika, tukawa na madeni.
Wakenya wote bado wako na majonzi kwa sababu uchaguzi imemalizika, lakini sherehe hakuna. Wakenya wana huzuni.
Tell the people of Kenya what you are trying to do and what you are going to do for there to be change in the Republic of Kenya.
Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua called on Kenyans to be patient with the William Ruto administration, as there is a lot to be done to bring the country's economy to a better state.
We cannot clean the mess, the economic mismanagement of 5 years in 30 days. What we are doing right now is cleaning their mess. And they cannot oversight us to clean their mess because they were part of the mess.
Leaders in the Kenya Kwanza government observed that the president must be given time to organize his government.
Raila Odinga akiongea mambo ya bei ya vyakula, bei ya mafuta, na anaongea ni kama yeye hakuwa kwa hiyo serikali ambayo imefanya hii bei iende juu.
Ile judging ya mapema ndio tunajaribu kuambia Wakenya wawe wapole, wawe patient. Tunajua gharama ya maisha iko juu. We do not want ile tunaita short term mitigation.
Hakuna vile mnaweza acha serikali bila hata shilingi moja. Mumekula kila kitu. Pesa mmepeleka Panama. Alafu mu expect serikali ikiingia hivi maneno ibadilike. It's a big shame.
Mogi William, TV47.
Kericho. That definitely forms the basis of our conversation, as well as this one. The Special Service Unit of the Directorate of Criminal Investigations was made up of killers instead of protectors. This is according to President William Ruto, who says the move by his government to disband the unit is part of its efforts to address extrajudicial killings in the country. Ruto, who spoke hours after the DCI released a statement announcing the disbandment of the unit, criticized the former government for allowing the unit to operate despite allegedly terrorizing Kenyans.
Speaking during a Thanksgiving prayer service at Kericho Green Stadium in Kericho County, the head of state affirmed the DCI's move to disband the Special Service Unit, saying the directive was aimed at addressing extrajudicial killings in the country.
Umevunja ile ilikuwa inaitwa special sijui nini ya police ambayo ilikuwa inaua wa Kenya kiholela. That is the history we want to forget. Let our competitors not remind us of the many things they did against this country.
According to Ruto, the squad is directly responsible for the unexplained deaths of Kenyans, citing the infamous River Yala killings as an example.
We have also a plan on how to secure this country so that we avoid the shame of Kenyans killed through extrajudicial killings and put in Yala River and other rivers. We're going to secure this country going into the future.
Ruto further criticized the previous government for allowing the unit to operate and terrorize the lives of Kenyan citizens.
Walikuwa na miaka mitano ambayo walitumia kuharibu mambo ya nchi yetu. Uchumi ikaharibika, tukawa na madeni, mambo ya usalama ikaharibika, polisi wakabadilika wakawa ni watu wa kuwaua wa Kenya badala ya kuwalinda.
The Special Crime Prevention Unit was created in 1999 due to the increased cases of complex crimes within the country. It was then rebranded to its current name in 2019 by the former DCI boss George Kinoti while in office. Zainab Mohammed, T47.
For that, and from that very story that also is very important and we'll be looking at, actually finds itself on, the main story of all the papers that we have this morning, the Daily Nation as well as the Standard newspaper. We'll be getting into details of the same. But before then, as well, we take a look at the question of the cost of living and so many other stories that are taking center stage right here in the country and across borders. Joining me for this very conversation, Honorable Geoffrey Kiringa Ruku, Member of Parliament of Mbeere North Constituency, as well as Honorable Innocent Mugabe, Member of Parliament of Likuyani, and as also governance expert and also the Executive Director of County Governance Watch, that is Kevin Osido. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for creating time to be with us. You are crucial in all the conversations that we'll be having this morning. First of all, the level of the National Assembly at the heart of every activity in the nation, in terms of policy formations, in terms of crafting of laws, and in terms of us spearheading conversations that are very, very important for the common mwananchi, as well as Governance Watch, very, very important as to making sure that devolution then is a success and leadership in general that is at this level of the country. And therefore, I believe that we are up to par and up to tabs to have this very, very important conversations. First of all, or first things first, we have the Deputy President is set to have a session as to celebrating the World Day for Food. That was yesterday, but then of course he pulls this celebration today. And remember, the theme is about us not leaving anyone behind, as to making sure that we have food security, well, better production, better nutrition, better environment, and a better life. Do you suppose that this government really is going to guarantee us, looking at the reports that we have received, looking at the pictures that we've had, looking at the numerous Kenyans and these counties that we speak of that continue to die because of the question of drought and even question of starvation, that the government in 30, 31, 32, 33 days is on course to addressing this? Honorable Mugabe?
Thank you.
Or perhaps I should allow you time to first say hi to the people of Likuyani, right? So they don't say Mheshimiwa aliingia TV na akaanza tu.
Yes, pia ni Mheshimiwa wa TV. Yeah, thank you very much. And let me say I'm glad to be here today, and especially to give our input, especially on these issues of food security. But before I do that, I want to say a big hello to my people,
right,
down there in Likuyani constituency, to thank them for overwhelmingly voting for me in the August polls. It was not an easy feat. Mine was like the proverbial David versus Goliath.
Okay.
But
there was a Goliath there, right?
There was a Goliath there. Yeah. So I want to say a very big thank you to you. And I'll also be touring the constituency from tomorrow during our short recess, just to see how we're going to propel development together. Now back to this issue, it is really saddening when we watch our TVs, we read stories in the newspaper about the ravaging drought and famine that is affecting the country. And it's really a big shame that a country like Kenya, we still have presidents flagging off relief foods in a country that has a very big potential to produce not only for internal consumption, but also for export. But these issues are never, especially the famine issue, is never addressed adequately or in a holistic manner in this country. Most of the time, we find that our reactions are knee-jerk. We wait until the problem gets to very bad levels. That is when we run and try to address it. We don't look at the big picture. We don't look at the sustainable, or rather sustainable solution to these issues. That is why year in, year out, we are faced with the same problems, and again, instead of treating the real ailment, our focus most of the time is on treating the symptoms. As a country, it is sad that in some places, farmers are struggling on where to take their produce, and in other places, people are dying of hunger. This is a country that has a lot of potential in terms of agricultural production, but we find ourselves importing most of these items. And to me, the most saddening part is that as a country, we've taken the angle of going to GMO as a solution to food insecurity in this country, which is very, very sad.
Mheshimiwa is laughing, and so before I come to Kevin, I want to understand the reason as to why Honorable Member of Parliament of Mbeere North is laughing when you speak about the GMOs. And in relation to the same, I will ask this question. We have had other countries, and I know there are countries in Africa that are as well embracing, GMO, but there are many of them that really have said no. And some of these countries, we export the surplus that we have to them. And so there's that general feel that if we are to go GMO, then this surplus that we'll definitely have perhaps will not be bought by these other countries because to them, they have not yet embraced GMOs. So what happens in such a scenario? And why is this?
My colleague here need to tell Kenyans that our universities in Kenya, if you go to Kenyatta University, we have many students who are studying biotechnology. If you go to University of Nairobi, you have many students who are doing biotechnology. If you go to the research institutions, like Kenya Livestock and Agriculture Research Organization, the former KARI. We have professors and PhD researchers who are researching on the best crops, can work, can perform, can be productive in different agroecological zones in the Republic of Kenya. This does not mean these are GMOs. It's only that the crops which can adapt to different agroecological zones in the Republic of Kenya and which can address the issues of food security in the entire Republic of Kenya. Today, if you go to the shelves of Nakumatt or the supermarkets we have in Kenya, you'll find the cereals which we buy for us to take breakfast in the morning. All these cereals come outside this country, and all of them are food from America, from other countries like Egypt, from South Africa, and all of them are foods from genetically modified plants. Okay, so why do we allow imports from Egypt, from South Africa, from US, and they are having such kind of crops in their countries, and we cannot be around to do the same crops here?
Okay.
You know, that is a very retrogressive mentality for solving issues to do with food security.
Do you trust in this government to solve,
Yes.
even as they recommend that then we go GMO?
If there is a government which is going to solve the issues of food insecurity once and for all, is William Ruto's government. And I have reason to say that. We only need to put more investment in production. We don't need to put more investment into consumption, because that is what has been happening from 1963 to moment. Government investing in consumption instead of investing in production. The government is going to invest in production of food across this country. How? One.
We'll come to the how. We'll come to the how because we have only 2 minutes to take a short break. For fairness, let's allow Kevin say something. We take a short break and then we come to understand how you say then the government is going to address the question of food insecurity. We're talking about availability, accessibility, affordability. These are crucial.
Yes.
And so how is very, very important for us to understand. Kevin, briefly in 2 minutes before we take a short break.
Yeah, it's a sad moment, Linda, and thank you for this opportunity that in 2022, we are celebrating World Food Day, which was inaugurated in 1940, about 1945-48, by the World Food Organization.
Yeah.
And for a government that has been there for close to 55, 56 years, with the degree of expectation that most Kenyans have in terms of what the government is supposed to do with them or do for them, having 4.1 million Kenyans going without food today, at a point in time when government has issued zero food subsidies to 193 millers. I think these are concerns that as a president will be addressing the nation, he needs to really come out and come up very strongly to be able to help Kenyans understand what exactly is ailing the nation, particularly given the fact that he is inheriting a government which he's been part of, and part of the big four agenda items of the government which he was a deputy president for, had one of the agenda items as food security. And so I believe that the president, former deputy president, has very good reasons in terms of what he wants to work with Kenyans to do in dealing with food sustainability issues, helping Kenyans understand aspects around diversification of eating and food habits, where, for example, in most parts of this country, we no longer grow food for consumption purposes. Farmers are struggling to produce.
Yeah.
But if you look at availability of markets, they are not there. Farmers out there are actually pouring out milk. Go to Muranga here. County government, the president has also to be very clear in terms of his intergovernmental relations on agriculture, working with county governments, because agriculture is a devolved function. And that's partly why we have seen the deputy president engaging with the council of governors from particularly the 23 counties that have been hard hit by drought. And the fourth thing that the president has to come out very strongly to help Kenyans understand is, remember that during the campaigns, when Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance was saying that the global crisis is what has made Kenyans become very poor and with the zero availability of food. Kenya Kwanza said that the war in Russia and Ukraine has zero impact on what is happening in Kenya. But 2 weeks ago, the president actually acknowledged that the global war is the reason why Kenyans are poor. So the president has to come out very strongly when he addresses the nation tomorrow to be specific in terms of when we talk about food security for Kenyans, what should Kenyans be looking for?
Mheshimiwa must be having a hint, and therefore we're coming to get to hear from him, and we'll see whether indeed then the president will allude to what it is that he will have presented to us after this short break.
Usiyakubalie maumivu ya misuli kukatiza ratiba yako. Kaluma Pain Balm ni dawa ya kusugua iliyotengenezwa kutoka kwa miche maalum ili kutuliza maumivu ya misuli. Kaluma Pain Balm. Maumivu ya kisidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians,
importation of GMO food or commodities. In Kenya production, what we have is research that is well protected or guarded so that it does not get out to into the normal production systems. This has been there for quite some time, and it's because we do not have conclusive evidence on whether GMO, especially food, is safe or not. So it might be safe, it might not, but we don't have globally conclusive evidence in that aspect. And I look at our country, Kenya, and I talk this a lot of confidence because the region I come from, we grow maize. I'm a maize farmer. I went to school because of maize production as a livelihood. And as a country, we're now producing between 40 to 44 million bags a year of maize, though our consumption is at 52 million. Meaning the deficit that we are talking about is actually less than 10 million. Less than 10 million. What we need to do in this is to look at how do we address this shortage or this gap of 10 million. And one of the ways is through subsidy of fertilizers, subsidy. We need also subsidies on our seeds and production of better hybrid seeds, which we have here in the country. And if there might be some deficit, then we can have Uganda, Tanzania here to fill up the gap. If we go the GMO way, will we be able to trade with Uganda? Will we be able to trade with Tanzania? What will happen to our commodities? Number two, we are going to lose control of the seed. And in production, the seed is the alpha and omega.
Yeah.
If we lose control of the seed, these multinational companies, they are purely for profit. The companies with patents for GMOs are purely for profit. Then we'll be depending on these multinationals for production.
Right.
Because we cannot even propagate sometimes our own seeds, because we'll be infringing on patent rights.
Yeah.
And this has been seen. We've seen this happening in Burkina Faso with the BT cotton. BT cotton, at some point, they could not get the seeds. At some point, the seeds were very expensive. And here we have our Kenya Seed company that we can push it to be a global company for seed production. Here we have an opportunity to trade on organic food. What do we lack as a country? I believe so many people are abandoning maize production. Why? Because of the challenges in the sector in terms of production costs, which the government needs to come in to subsidize. In terms of guaranteed minimum returns, we don't have guaranteed minimum returns. We had a shortage of maize. Now the harvest season has come in, and you'll find the prices go very low. What is happening? The millers are buying now in bulk. The prices are low. They'll store them. Then at some point they will increase what? The price of maize flour in the country. These are some of the things that we need to look at holistically in the whole food value chain. Issues of distribution of this food to reach each and every corner of the republic. You find that we also need a lot of restructuring, especially with the agencies dealing with the issues of food production, and especially the National Cereals and Produce Board.
Right.
You find that for them even to distribute this fertilizer is a problem. When you go to my constituency in Likuyani, we border Uasin Gishu, and an NCPB store is Uasin Gishu is nearer than the one for Kakamega County that is in Lugari. But when farmers go there, they are told, you can't give you fertilizer because you are not from you're from a different county. So a farmer that needs 1 or 2 bags would have to spend even more money to go and get that. But here we are in a country that when you want a cold beer, you'll find it in Lodwar the following day.
Oh, yeah.
But when it comes to distribute some basic commodities that are very key in our production, like fertilizer, you find that it is filled up with many red tapes.
Right.
Issues of maize milling. When you look at tea, we have tea cooperatives, we have coffee cooperatives, and the likes. But when you come to maize, the industry is now being led or managed by millers. These millers do not care who produces. They would be very happy even to import, because the imports might be cheaper. They don't really care about what the farmer gets. I'm looking at a situation, and I'm going to bring this to the floor of Parliament, to have maize cooperatives, so that when you grow our maize, we mill it and we sell flour.
Okay.
So if these companies want to sell flour, they can buy and go and package and sell. But we want the farmers to own this process in the value chain, so that they can get value for their production.
Right.
But as a country, I believe maize production, we can even hit 60 million bags a year and export surplus. Right. We don't need GMO seeds for maize production.
Well, interesting, and we will come to that further, as well as to you, Kevin, later on the roles of the county governments, because we're talking about around 23 ESOL counties where there is total starvation, and then you want to ask yourself just what is the role of devolution in addressing this if the situation gets dire. But before that, Mheshimiwa, let's speak about this, policies. Let's speak about these proposals that have been brought to the fore, including this one of, lifting the ban on GMO, that would help us as a country. As you rightfully put it, it's the Kenya Kwanza government that will give us that emancipation, that aspect of food security. We're looking at availability, accessibility, affordability, just create a balance on all this for Kenyans to enjoy, food and get surplus to actually export.
Thank you. Let me put it in perspective first, that we have a president who is a scientist par excellence. A fellow who has a BSc in science, Bachelor of Science.
Mheshimiwa, you know that we've had a president who was an economist.
Yes, yes.
Really?
Yes.
Where we are.
And you can see,
yes.
And you can see the president who was economist par excellence, President Mwai Kibaki.
Equally, yes.
Yes, you know what he did to this country. President Uhuru Kenyatta was not economist by excellence. He did BA in political science.
And economics.
And economics.
And he had minored in economics. We are talking about presidents who have majored. President Kibaki had a major in economics, bachelor's, master's in economics. William Samoei Ruto as a bachelor's in science, as a master's in science, and a PhD in science. So I want to put it in perspective clearly. Okay. So he's a guy who understands what GMO is all about. We are talking about research well conducted so that we can have plants, which are adapting to different ecological zones of the country, as well as what we may call drought resistance, pests, plant which can do good depending on where this plant is.
You see, what makes logic is that the president is part of this.
We are not talking about changing the genetic composition, of different plant completely. That it was a maize, then it changes from maize to a totally different plant. No, we're only talking about that this maize can do well, not only where it comes from, where maize do well, but also can do in Ukambani, where farming maize is a problem.
Until the introduction of Katumani, which appears to do so well as
well. Exactly. So this is the things we're talking about, okay? So I am sure, and I can say this with confidence, that the Kenya Kwanza government or the administration led by William Ruto is going to solve the issues of food shortage in this country.
At the expense of health, as some scientists argue?
No, not at all. Because, we need to appreciate that we have our researchers, we have our universities with well-trained guys as far as the issues to do with the biotechnology is concerned. And when he's talking about international companies, we don't need international companies for us to have a production of scenes, locally, scenes which can do well across our country.
The same way he argues that we don't need GMO.
We don't need those international companies. I don't know, some of them are called Monsanto, We don't need those companies.
But then he also says that we do not need to go GMO.
We have our local institutions which have very well qualified scientists which have been doing nothing, and this government is giving a platform to the Kenyan scientists so that they can develop, they can develop different varieties of different crops across the country.
What if they come back with a report that then this is not the right thing to do?
No, let me tell you, I have friends who are scientists, especially in Kenyatta University, fellows who went to school together. fellows who have put a lot of hours in doing research, and always they complain that this government, I mean the Kenyan government, are not, is not open to the facts of science. We are very happy today that we have a president who is open to the facts, and the truth of science. Let's not be activists. Mm-hmm. Activists are very good.
And the question of time is very important, Mheshimiwa. That is why perhaps Honorable Mugabe here started by saying that maybe we've rushed into this.
No.
And why I'm saying this is because let's just take the recent occurrence of COVID-19 and the fact that we had researchers and scientists that came up with these vaccines. And then later on, before you know it, they tell you that you've taken first jab, second jab, then you get COVID-19. Then they start telling you that really this is not 100%. You need to get a booster jab and all this confusion. Don't you think we could have gotten ourselves into, first of all, conducting proper research, these scientific activities and processes before lifting the ban?
Were it not for the scientists who helped to take care of COVID-19, this world, this planet would have been in serious problem. We have to appreciate the effort which scientists across the globe, and especially the scientists from America and other nations, what they did.
So we give it to them.
Yes, in trying to contain the COVID-19.
We're not disputing
okay?
that. We're not disputing
But
science.
as far as food security is concerned,
right,
our president is in the right direction of saying that we cannot continue banning GMOs, when in actual sense, if you go to the shelves of your supermarket, you'll find the cereals which you take for breakfast, the cornflakes, the oranges you buy from South Africa.
And someone tells me,
yes,
please remind Mheshimiwa that they do not take some of this, that he speaks of them. They will go organic 100%, and they are rich enough to afford this.
And my biggest problem is actually the issue of who controls the GMO industry.
Yes.
This GMO industry are controlled by just a few multinationals, Bayer, Monsanto, and the likes. They have patents. As much as we have our scientists and all that, there are limits that we can't go beyond. And it's already there. They are the ones supplying seeds almost across the world and the likes. When we lose our seed sovereign, then as a country, we're actually exposing ourselves to now very serious problem of hunger or even exploitation. When such happens, now the US produces this GMO maize. They have been doing it for many years. The moment we accept that, our market will be flooded with the cheap GMO maize from America.
Okay.
Then what happens to our farmers? Because there is no profitability, they will what? They will abandon maize farming. Then the problem of food security will even be dire. What I'm saying, as a country, we have not reached a point that we want to use GMO as the silver bullet to solve our hunger issues. We are not yet there. And let us give room for further research and consensus.
Yeah.
And even as the president announced this, I'd expected even the public to be informed if we have this research and scientific evidence, the public at least to be fed with this information before the pronunciation that we are uplifting the ban on GMO. How many Kenyans know the effects of GMO in their health and the scientific steps that have been taken to have this evidence? Have these been shared with the public?
You see,
No.
that's the most unfortunate thing, Mheshimiwa, and perhaps to take it to Kevin, that everybody is making an argument, on fallacy grounds, that there's no proper understanding of what exactly we are having a conversation on. And therefore, it becomes hard to even counter or even agree to what it is that the government is then presenting to us. And so at this very level, then we want to ask at the counties, the Council of Governors, the governors themselves, do they even have this proper understanding before it gets to the public? There's been that conversation that perhaps there was need for public participation. But even as you go back to this public, just how many of us understand the nitty-gritty details of this to make sound judgment, to make sound arguments, and get into a space where we are all protected?
Linda, you're asking me a very technical question, but in its technicality, I'll try and give you technical responses. To begin by saying that one of the things that I believe that the government needs to do is to be an open space where individuals, normal citizens like farmers, technicians, institutions and universities like the ones that Mheshimiwa Kiringa is mentioning are given the space to provide papers. That is what I have seen developed countries doing, that before a government comes up with a position, there is a process. And so in this country, for example, in 2015, we had an agency, and the agency is still there, called the National Biosafety Authority, NBA, which was basically put up ahead of the ban which Kenya put in 2012 to now go and undertake research and be able to advise government effectively. Before the president comes up and lifts the ban, we need to ask the NBA, National Biosafety Authority, what were your findings? Okay. Then we go to these institutions and have them present papers and even experiences and then recommendations from other countries and what Kenya can be able to do. Then we have institutions like KALRO, we have KALRI, and all these others who engage in livestock and agriculture. Even before we take it to the networks of the farmers at the grassroots or at the bottom level, what do these institutions therefore have to say against global investments by other countries like Egypt, South Africa, Botswana, etc., or among others? What then should inform the position of Kenya is what these countries are doing, what our research institutions are talking about, and other government agencies that we have talked about. Then ultimately government takes a position and says, yes, we have looked at what these other people are doing, what our local institutions are doing, and best practice in terms of what have we done in the last 9-10 years or up to 2020 to inform a position. What I think the government is doing is, in my view, playing politics by being populistic, by saying, okay, you don't have food, so we are going to provide you with food by lifting the ban on GMOs and allowing people to come in and give you cheap food. Because purely, GMOs are available internationally because they are things that you put in, for example, a laboratory, and you carve them, and if they grow, and you give a good example of COVID-19. That really, in my view, is what government should be doing, testing what is working and then what is not working. And moving forward, Linda, into looking at why GMOs. Yeah. Does it mean that Kenya is so deficient that we cannot be able to grow our breadbasket counties, which then brings me to the question of the counties. Right. But before I go there, is to look at why are people investing in GMOs? Of course, they are readily available. You can talk about the technology that it comes with. You can talk about issues of disease resistance of cropping. You can go further and talk about the degree of better yields that GMOs can be able to guarantee or to provide. But then the scientists, like Mheshimiwa is saying, should be guiding us. What are the effects on issues like cancer, for example? Because why Kenya banned maize, GMO maize in 2012 was because of that uproar and outcry that, some of these foods actually lead towards people having cancer. And the question that begs is, what has Kenya done in the war against cancer, and what have we learned, in all this medical science that we have been engaging in? Which therefore, in my view, brings me to the question around counties. The first thing that county governments and COG and other stakeholders need to do is to undertake research, Linda, which borders on a number of the things that I have talked about. Number two, county governments are organized into regional economic blocks. It would be quite absurd for us to see what we are currently seeing in some parts of the country, where in Murang'a milk is being poured, and you go to places like Trans Nzoia in Western, among others, farmers are not able even to sell their maize produce or even to produce, because agriculture is largely a devolved function. And so the national government needs to work in unison and in close engagement with the Ministry of Agriculture to determine how to boost and even provide packages for county governments, which brings me to the other issue of the budget. What amount of budgeting has county governments done to be able to ensure that farmers feel, more or less covered or insured to a certain degree? In Kenya, farmers are never insured. You go and you spend money plowing your farm, you go and buy seeds, and then certainly climate change happens. There is no rain. What does government do to a farmer who has invested 90 million in a farm, hiring, in Siaya County where I come from, the former government actually used to give farmers tractors. They will tell you have a piece of land, there's a process you go through, and then they send tractors to you. And the governor used to even give what I would call seed banks, which indeed is one of the things that county governments need to do. So farmers would be given seeds, but nobody bothers to look at the irrigation aspect. Is there rain, for example? Right now, rains have actually failed, to a greater extent across the country.
There are places where it's extreme, there are places where they
so irrigation issues are things, therefore, that through National Drought Management Authority and the irrigation agencies, a conversation needs to take place. And you know that even as we talk about this in 2020, Kenyans have actually come out and done, food banking for certain areas. I remember Turukana, I remember places like Baringo, where we had the news media telling us that children are actually eating on dogs. In 2022, for a country that has grown this far, Linda, we need to learn from our challenges in the past, and then stop and think about what is it that we are not doing right. And then move on towards doing the right thing. But then lastly, before I hand over, is the issue of diversification.
Let's cut to the chase.
Just a minute, Mheshimiwa. Diversification of eating habits, where we have overemphasized maize against other crops that would probably do better, like sorghum, maybe cassavas, among others. So I think a conversation around how we diversify our eating habits and also production is also quite an important.
And I remember Magufuli alluding to that.
In layman's language. In layman's language, so that this myth surrounding GMO, we can be able to demystify some of these myths. I'll give an example of sorghum farming. And we have issues to do with climate change. The drought is high. The rainfalls across the country, you find that sometimes they are quite high for a very short period of time, or rain which is not covering the entire season. Now, here there's a scientist who has managed to do his research, and he has come up with a way of ensuring that if he changes, the genetic makeup of this sorghum, and remember, when you're talking about genetic makeup of sorghum, of human beings, or whatever it is a thousands, it's millions of DNA, of genes, So it's just a small element which will be changed to ensure, for instance, I'm giving an example, when a reef of sorghum, it is open. When it is very cold, when it is very hot, it folds itself, okay? That mere element of folding itself to shield the plant from direct, sun rays, helped this plant to grow throughout the season until when it is ready for harvest. Okay, just that folding will help us achieve food security. Okay, so it's few changes of a plant to suit different environmental conditions, so that we can have proper harvest at the end of the season. So we may be talking about GMO as if it is a ghost, as if it is something something huge, something very scary. No, let us tell Kenyans that this thing, it may have a very big name, but they are a simple element which can help us achieve food security. And that is what our president, being a scientist, is aware of. You cannot tell me a scientist at the Kenyatta University who has come up with a way of ensuring this sorghum or maize, it can fold itself when it is very hot, okay? And it can be able to preserve water, content, and grow throughout the season, that thing is banned to plant in our...
Well, interesting way to look at it. I think we need to have
farms.
these conversations on the basis of information and proper grounds of understanding. And Mheshimiwa, like you rightfully put it, it will be very important to see how this sails through then at the level of Parliament, because we have seen bills being taken there, and as well, it's not always easy to see them sail through. So allow us to take a short break, and then we come back, perhaps shift gears to a different conversation altogether.
Maumivu ya kichwa na kukosesha amani? Kaluma Strong hutuliza maumivu ya kichwa, maumivu ya mwili.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga,
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe
that is very, very important. I think it
heated
boils down to food security, and so we can only wait to see how the government then is going to handle this. And speaking of how the government is going to handle this, President William Ruto reminds the Right Honorable Raila Odinga and very many Kenyans who would want to castigate them 30 days into government that, you know what, can you relax? We have inherited a government that has really not been in the best of shape, much as we're part of the government then. And it will only be fair for you to accord us time to address some of these matters. It is one thing to speak of 100 days during the campaigns. It is one thing to say that, you know what, we are going to give you the Hustler Fund free of charge. It is another now when it comes to actualizing for you to remind people that huwezi kupata pesa kwa government free namna hiyo. And, you know, even laugh about it, which really is the reality. And as well, it is another to say that upon inheriting this government that is on its knees, you require some ample time to fix these very messes. Honorable Mugabe, here we are, perhaps 35 days into Ruto's government or so, thereabout. Is it only fair that we allow them time to at least work on some of these messes that were hugely propagated by the Uhuru government?
Thank you. As a student of management, I will agree with the president that, of course, we need time to fix one or two issues. But then the question that begs is, during campaign period, why were we promising heaven when we knew clearly it won't happen? Number two, I really dislike the part that the president disassociates himself with the former regime, and he was the deputy president. He sat in cabinet to make decisions. He had, quote unquote, his people in senior government position, running the government. And in most of the time, he was all over the country launching government projects here and there, and he could remind us time and again that he is the deputy president. I expected a lot of a smooth transition with William Ruto's government, because he has been in that system. It does not need to be shown any corridors or corners. He understands this government from A to Z. He has been part and parcel of it. If there were any problems, like he was maybe agitating during the campaign period, then he must have had a solution to fix them as fast as possible. So I will not take that they need 2 years or what to make things work. That one I'll not agree with. They have been part and parcel. If it was Raila Amolo Odinga, I would say he's coming into a totally new system. Just to put things into in order. This issue of hiding behind the handshake to me doesn't work, because Raila was never in government. Raila never appointed his ministers or PSs to join the Uhuru government. That government was a government for Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta and His Excellency William Samoei Ruto. So I expected things to run smooth. So to me, these are escapism. And look at Kibaki. When Kibaki took over Moi, it was worse. It was worse. It was total opposition, not this camouflaged one. It was total opposition coming into government. And Kibaki maybe talked about Moi only during his inauguration. After that, he went into work, and we started to see changes happening in our country. Free primary education. He did not ask us for 1 year to implement free primary education. Implemented it immediately. But here, down the line, a month or so, we are still crying over Uhuru, Raila. No. I think it is time we get to work and deliver to what we promised Kenyans to deliver.
March 2018. On 19th March 2018.
The handshake.
To 9th August 2022, Raila Amolo Odinga was co-president of this nation. Matiang'i was the deputy president of this Republic of Kenya. And they spent 5 years doing two things. One, fighting all the friends of William Samoei Ruto, and two, trying to ensure William Ruto will not ascend to power through coming up with this thing they used to call BBI.
Fast forward, Kenyans are not going to buy that narrative.
But
so Kenyans are not going, it could be true, but you're not going to tell that
our deputy president, our current deputy president,
dying of hunger.
Our current deputy president is telling us we speak the truth.
Right.
And Kenya Kwanza.
And so until when?
We are people who speak the truth. We are people who speak the truth.
Yes.
Kenya Kwanza is going to fix the issues of drought effect in this country, once and for all. We are going to have several dams constructed across the 47 counties, minus Nairobi, to ensure there is enough water for farming. These dams, of course, you use quite a number of huge resources to fix the issue of food security. How do we get these resources, this money, to build dams across the country? There are many innovative ways of raising money to do that. This government, we are going to see there is what we call government entrepreneurship, or there is entrepreneurship, individuals. No, not doing business with government, but government becoming very innovative so that it can solve issues affecting the common man. the president came up with the water purchase agreement. Okay?
Yes.
And at the moment, the Ministry of Finance is putting up a framework on how that policy can work. Water purchase agreement to ensure the dams which are going to be constructed in different counties, we have resources to construct those dams because they are expensive projects. For instance, we have dams where I come from in my constituency, which requires 23 billion to be constructed. Where do you get these 23 billion? The country is broke. So it must be very innovative on raising that amount of money.
And don't you think it would be fair if you were to tell Kenyans of these innovative ways that you're planning to do this, as opposed to focusing on the fact that, you know, we inherited a terrible government, that it was right Honorable Raila Matiang'i was the deputy.
Yeah, but that's the truth.
Yes, that is truth, but you know, the more truth that we require as the people of Kenya is a truth of hope. That, you know, above all said and done, there is this. We're going to take this mechanism, we're going to take this angle, we're going to go to GMO.
Uhuru government and Raila's government, they spent 5 years doing nothing. When we know we are in climate change
was open the other
issues.
day.
Let me finish my point. The climate financing is a huge thing in the world. Where is the money in the climate finance market going to? It is not helping this country because we don't have a framework which can bring all these resources together.
There's a framework.
Yes, there is.
No. There's no framework.
What we have launched at the
county level. Even at the county level.
What we have,
there is a framework.
Even at the county level.
What we have is Climate Change Act.
No, there is climate change finance.
And remember, this is also global.
Which is so broad. Which is so broad, Climate Change Act, which is so broad, which is not well focused. You realize when you go to the Ministry of Environment, there is a unit on climate change. When you go to the Ministry of Energy, there is a unit. When you go to NEMA, there is a unit. When you go to the Ministry of Finance, there is a unit. Why not bring all these units together so that all the resources which are coming from the climate finance can say, these are the projects which we are going to implement for the people of the Republic of Kenya so that they can be able to adapt to the effect of climate change, so that they can be able to mitigate issues to do with climate change. We mainstream, you know, through, say, a Climate Financing Act, which I intend to forward it, to do it through registration.
11 counties already have an act.
There's a lot going on.
11 counties already have County Climate Change Act. Why is it going to legislate at the national level? Number two, Kenya already has, which was launched at the Devolution Conference in Makueni, what is called the Kenya County Climate Change Fund, which brings together friends of Kenya,
and as well what is being done at the level of the global aspect.
All these are of course premised on what is happening at the global level, which is why the just ended United Nations General Assembly emphasized on what countries have done post COP26 ahead of COP27. So Mheshimiwa needs to go back and read his climate change notes, because otherwise
we'll allow him to tell us what it is that he will be presenting without.
I'm an expert in climate change.
But moving forward,
we're coming back to you. Yes.
Moving forward to the question which you asked, I like the president's energy, and one of the things that I admire about President William Ruto is his ability to engage with an active mind, ability to be focused on discussions and conversations. His energy, I think, is way above board, and that's one of the things that I think is going to really keep his cabinet secretaries and his government to toe and on toes. But Linda, the question around time, because campaigns ended many days and weeks ago, and Kenyans are looking forward to the how. Do it now. Because when we tell Kenyans that we will do, especially inheriting a government which you have been part of, despite the issues around handshake and all that, when Kenya Kwanza government was campaigning, they looked like they were really, the issues were right at their fingertips. If you read their manifesto, the issues were already synchronized and they were made very palatable, easy to eat. Can we see those actions now being implemented against a war with the opposition? The president and his deputy have also been very categorical about the place of the opposition.
But do not allow opposition to distract us.
Okay.
And Azimio has agreed that they are going to stand aside and exercise their right of opposition. And so for Kenya, which is a pure presidential system, you must have government in its three arms and its three elements, and you also need to have an opposition. We have said many times, and I'll repeat it again on this platform, that we have not enhanced the role of the opposition. There is no office called Office of the Leader of Opposition. It is not budgeted for. It is not financed in any way. The party and the parties that form the coalition of the opposition have to innovate mechanisms to raise their own monies to exercise that opposition. And so it is not out of the blues, in my view, to question. For example, we've been talking about the policy on GMOs. Any Kenyan, by Constitution Article 101, sovereign power is vested on the people. So you cannot stop them from opposing, not liking, and of course coming up with new recommendations and new ways of doing things. Remember, during the presidential debate, you're asking a question which the president was asked, and he said, enough is enough. Now, I move it further and ask, how much time is enough? Because Kenyans are dying out of hunger. We have areas in this country where kids are not going to school. They want a clear policy on education. Remember that post-COVID-19, we have young people who have lost jobs, and we have youth who have been waiting for employment, 2.4 million plus of them. And if you do that per year, in the last 10 years of Jubilee, you have more than enough young people who are looking for jobs. Yeah. Then you come up with the Hustler Fund, which in my view, and as I've said many times, Linda, is not new. What the government needs to do is to open it up again and ask the youth what is not working among all the other affirmative action funds that government has put in place. Wezo Fund, what is not working in it? Youth Enterprise Development Fund, what is not working in it? 30% AGPO, access to government procurement opportunities, what is not working within it? Which, remember, that Kenya Kwanza did very well, because they told us they had 47 economic forum conversations in the county. So they have the issues. Move that to a level where you now implement, so that you begin to see Kenyans embracing the manifesto and taking advantage of the context right now where counties are building their county integrated development planning processes. Anything which is not in the CIDP will not be budgeted for. Wow. That, I think, in my view, should be the emphasis of the Kenya Kwanza government, as opposed to trying to stifle and stopping people from talking about what they feel the government is not doing properly.
And we're going to come to you, but yes.
I think I would want to just inform my colleague here that, as in the Azimio, we are going to give proper oversight. And we will not see things going wrong, then you keep quiet.
It should be objective, at least.
And very objective.
Right.
Very objective. During the campaign, they told us we are going to bring down the cost of living in 100 days.
It's only 30 days.
Yeah, in 100 days. But now they are telling us 2 years. No. They're telling us 2 years, because now we've brought in fertilizer, wait for that fertilizer to be used by farmers, they plant, then after 2 years, it will go down. They told us, and to quote, Ukraine are tall tales. These stories of Ukraine are tall tales. Then they are coming to reality. I think they are now facing the realities, and to me, they should just come out clean and say, yes, we underestimated this. We put a lot of blame in Uhuru, but now we've seen that why things happen the way they do, and let us come together as a country and chart a clear way forward, instead of keeping complaining about the Uhuru government. And I think it's on Saturday. They were all in Kirinyaga.
Yeah? They were in Kirinyaga.
Opening the Timber Dam. Yeah? And who did it? Or they did it in 30 days?
President Uhuru.
Yeah. You know,
the schools in Dagoretti, which were launched last Friday.
So, to me, reality is coming home. And again, I would want to put in some little emphasis on this Hustler Fund, like he has explained. It is a good fund, only that during campaigns we made people believe that we'll give them money. But I was very keen, even in Parliament, I would not allow what you call the entitlement of free money, because these are taxpayers' money, and they must be used prudently. What I'll be asking is that I don't know the much effort we wait to see the legislation proposals that will come to the floor of the House on how best they want to manage these funds. I hear circles, cooperatives, chamas, and all that. We must be very careful that this fund does not generate to be like other funds that we've been having in this country. And number two, the government to me should be a facilitator of business. I don't know the model they're going to use, but I would vehemently oppose a model where it is the government that is lending directly to the people. Because the government does not have the experience, the knowledge, and the infrastructure to lend and recover. Number two, when the government gives such monies, there would be a lot of entitlement to that money. And believe me, if it is done in 2027, there will be waivers on that as a campaign a campaign tool. That one will keep a keen eye to make sure that proper programs, proper structures are put in place to lend and recover this money. We don't want this to be another avenue of corruption or another avenue of wastage of government resources. And I'm talking this from experience. I've managed such a fund in a county government, and we did a lot of research on how best this fund can work. We interrogated financial institutions, listened to their proposals, and to me the best would be for the government to work with the financial institutions that have experience and have worked with micro and small businesses, so that these funds provides a guarantee for them to lend, but they provide flexibility, especially on issues of collateral and the likes. That the people to get this money must be thoroughly trained, and to be ascertained that they can be able to utilize this money in their businesses. Not telling people to form chamas. People will form chamas to come to us for that money. People will form companies to come and borrow that money. But before someone is given that money, it should be ascertained that this individual, this group, or this organization will use these funds prudently, and they will be able to pay. Number two, they should attach officers. I don't think the government has the capacity to attach officers to these people who will borrow this money, so that they are monitored. Sometimes we give money, we forget. After 2 years, 3 years down the line is when we want to look at their contacts to try and ask them to come and pay back. They should have officers who will be doing M&E, making sure that they're keeping their books right and all that. Plus a lot of business incubation and training and developing of models that will enable, especially young people, to take advantage of this fund. I'm looking at maybe a very simple one, to take our young people for proper training to make modern furniture. Have machines and everything. Then all government institutions to buy machines, to buy furniture from what? From these young people. There should be an end-to-end. If you're giving this person money, it should, we need to look at the whole process to make sure that you're giving you to produce this. What would be the end? Would be the end result. Will you be able to make money? Or we'll have a situation where every young person comes with a proposal that they want to put up a poultry farm. Then the whole village or the whole town, everybody has a chicken and they don't have any.
There's no business.
There's no business. No one.
And Mheshimiwa, these are valid points that are being raised, and I will assume that the government really has put all this into consideration. They remind us every time that hata ile pesa ya wazee imekuwa ngumu sana kumanage. Sembuse hii ambayo itakuwa ni hustler fund.
Respectively, I want to to correct some things he has said.
Yes.
One, William Ruto was sworn in as a president on 15th of September. So today is 17th of October. So he has been in office as a president for 1 month.
He was sworn in on 15th or 13th? It was
30 days.
13th.
Yes.
So he has been in office for 1 month and I think 4 days.
Yeah, 2-3 days. Yes.
4 days. So we are not yet 60 days mark. And I can assure you, by the time we get to 100 days, there will be quite a number of changes in terms of programs and the way things are going to be managed for another 5 years in this country. And within those 30 days, I'm sure even the business community are starting feeling the changes, the effect of the new direction which the government
of high fuel prices.
You want to
of
we cannot
drop to 1 shilling. Fair enough, yes.
We cannot continue.
High and then we drop. Okay.
We cannot continue subsidizing consumption.
Yeah.
We cannot continue subsidizing fuel. Continue subsidizing unga. No. We are going to put that money into projects which are going to improve our production in different areas, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is in agriculture, so that the economy of this country can change. Having said that, it's also important to put things right. We cannot sit here in a national television and say that government is one of the weakest institutions everywhere in the world. If there is a strong institution, is government. If we have an institution which can ensure that the programs are implemented in the most efficient and effective manner across the country, is government. And not only the Kenyan government, I'm talking about government across the world. Okay? So we are talking about ASLA's fund. What my friend is not aware is that ASLA's fund is not a fund in isolation. It's a fund which is going to be intertwined with government programs. One, the housing program. Kenya Kwanza government is going to implement a housing project across the nation. And it's going to be standardized such that the artisans in Vihiga can produce doors, and those doors have a market. The artisans in Mombasa can also produce doors, and those doors have a market. Because those doors will be standardized. The windows will be standardized. Why it is difficult to have a booming manufacturing sector in the Republic of Kenya is because, for instance, if you give an example with the housing, all of us have housing which are designers. You know, you want your house to be designed in a specific manner. I want my house to be designed in a specific manner. Kenya Kwanza government has come up with a policy where the housing plan, the block of apartment built in Nairobi will be the same as a block of apartment built somewhere for instance, in Marsabit County. I'm just giving an example. So the windows, so it is possible wherever you are producing these doors from, at least you know there is a market. And what we'll do is that the people to be prioritized to get opportunity to utilize this ASLA's fund are the people who are doing manufacturing of some of these elements of government projects so that they can have a direct market.
Mheshimiwa, allow me to take a quick short break and then come back on that very note, and perhaps also we'll take that question that Kevin should be having so that you largely expound or answer to the same after this break.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political debates. Baraza la Siasa.
Hiyo kitu azungumzie, angalie hali ya maisha ya watu.
Informative health discussions. Business, farming. Tasty Wednesday, Fitness Thursday, and Feel Good Friday with amazing DJs, celebs,
waimbaji, kuna comedians, alafu kuna wajinga.
and music bands every Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m.
Zidi pata ushauri.
How well do you know what's happening around you? Morning Cafe with heated political
Honorable Geoffrey Kiringa Ruku, Honorable Innocent Mugabe, Honorable Kevin Osido. Well, we just elevated you. Please accept that, yeah? His Excellency. And it's interesting how the breaks are always landing on you, Mheshimiwa.
Yeah.
And so allow us to loop in Kevin on this matter. You speak of standardization and how then the Kenya Kwanza government, is planning to bring to the fore the questions of development and the policies that have been raised aboard, and of course, well, hugely defending the government that there's that aspect that we would need to, accord them some ample time for them to be able to look at some of these matters, which then is acceptable. But then again, the common mwananchi who's down there and dying of hunger will perhaps not buy into this very argument. And you had a question. Is it on the question of standardization or
No.
the structures that
I actually do not have a
country?
question. I have a contribution to make.
Make it brief so that he can come in as well.
We need to be very careful, because what Mheshimiwa is saying is partly the reason why almost all these affirmative action funds have failed. The imagination that all the target areas of the fund are in artisanry. The imagination that all the youth are musicians. The imagination that all the women are mamambogas. We must delink ourselves from that thought, which is partly why, if you look at repayment rates of youth fund, they are way too low. If you look at access to government procurement opportunities by young people, largely hustlers, or these hustlers, largely young people, the uptake is very low because of that kind of thinking. So as the president is looking forward to launching the Hustler Fund on December 1st, I want to encourage that they should have conclusive stakeholder engagements, which I'm sure that they have had, because pre-campaigns, pre-elections, they had a lot of the 47 economic forums and discussions and all that. I played part in drafting about 6 of them, which was submitted. So we must insist that government looks at the hustlers in totality, and also bringing in their diversity and peculiarity. Standardization is not an issue.
I was only giving one example.
Yes.
Only one example.
Yeah.
I can give 10 of them.
Yes.
Fine. That's
so that we can have a bigger, perspective.
Yeah.
That's number one. Number two, it would also not be very right for us to equate Hustlers Fund to the housing program, because those two things, reading from Kenya Kwanza Manifesto, are totally different.
That really wasn't about the Hustlers Fund.
I think he explained.
Yes.
He has explained as one of the models,
yes. Yeah.
Which I'm in agreement.
Yes.
The only part I'm not fully in agreement is that we'll have standard houses across the country, and that we'll train these people to make standard things. So I think we should train them to make things.
That will not guarantee.
Because Linda, my reading this manifesto, the Hustlers Fund was very clear that the hustlers do not have money in their pockets. In fact, they said tutawapatia pesa. Yeah, and we kept saying there is no day government will carry money in gunias, and the president actually repeated the same yesterday and said, don't wait for money from the state because it will not come.
But how often do we follow the manifestos that we present?
Which is why it is important for us, yes, because that is an accountability tool. Remember we said manifesto is a promissory note. So we must follow it to the letter and to its spirit. What government needs to do with the Hustlers Fund is to look at about 4 or 5 things. One, Linda, is the access. How do you want to ensure that hustlers access? SACCOs are in existence. People have registered groups. As County Governance Watch and working with the DSDOs, the County Social Development Officers, we have been encouraging young people to register because that's one of the minimum requirements. But Linda, you go into a sub-county and you collect more than 528 registered groups. For you to register a group as per the affirmative action funds, the minimum number you need is 15 people. That is already a SACCO. So all these things we are talking about are in existence. So the Hustlers Fund needs to emphasize on access. Number 2 is on the amounts. For example, today, you are told that if you are in a group, the minimum you can get is 100 shillings. And if you are a sole proprietor, you get 1 million shillings, but you attach collaterals and all these guarantees, because within the groups, the members guarantee each other. So is the Hustlers, the 50 billion, going to reduce the amounts, or is it going to increase? So that if I want to do a road in Lukuyani and I've registered a company, I've gotten all the paperwork from NCA and all that, will a young person be able to get 10 million, for example, from the Hustlers Fund? Number 3 is availability.
Make it brief so Mheshimiwa can.
Let's not make the meeting a Mheshimiwa meeting, because otherwise the third thing is availability. Is availability.
Right.
How available will the Hustlers Fund be? And Mheshimiwa talked about training of government personnel, which is why I think he was talking about the inabilities and inadequacies of government. Will we be able to have properly trained personnel to manage and administer the fund? And then lastly, so that you can give him time, is a distribution. To what degree will the Hustlers Fund be distributed across the country, so that we don't see similar examples like Youth Fund, Uwezo Fund and others, where if you look at the ratings and access, only a certain people from certain parts of the country benefit. So for me, it would not be into the details of how because what he's talking about is mainstreaming, which is already happening in government. You go to agriculture, there are youth who are doing fisheries, but they are mainstreaming it all the way across the value chain.
And I think the general question then would be, what is the difference between this that is Hustler Fund and those ones that are Uwezo Funds?
The point is missing is that to acknowledge this country, the power of this country's economy is led by the informal sector. The informal sector is the one which keeps this country running.
78% of GDP.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now, what is the informal sector? The informal sector is that person who wakes up in the morning, he doesn't know where to go, but somehow he's cracking his mind, throughout the day. On that business, he can be able to do and make 5,000, 2,000, 1,000, okay? And out of this informal sector, the number of people who have some businesses to do and they don't have the income, the capital, and they cannot go to any institution. They can't go to SACCO, they can't go to a Shyrock, they cannot go to a bank, they cannot go to anywhere to get that needed amount of money so that they can buy eggs in Kawangware and sell those eggs in Mombasa Road, okay, and make a difference of 2,000. There are quite a number of them. So what Kenya Kwanza government is planning to do with the Hustlers Fund is to aggregate, bring this informal sector business men or business women together and help them, facilitate them to be able to do those small businesses they keep on doing.
And I think that's why Mugabe then was saying it is necessary to have...
That informal sector. There is also, for instance, the young people of this country who have finished universities, the startups. They have very good ideas which can make money, which can even create employment. If you look at the startups profile in Africa, which country in Africa is leading in startup? Kenya has always been leading. At the moment, I think it's Nigeria which is leading, though I'm not sure.
South Africa, Kenya.
South Africa, I think, and Nigeria. Kenya has been leading with the startups for quite some time. What does that tell you? It tells us that we Kenyans, we are very innovative. If we have a government which can support us.
So are we going to scrap the Uwezo funds of today? Are we going to scrap all these funds that have been available?
No, we are not going to scrap Uwezo funds.
How much
the only thing we are saying is we have very elitist programs which have been implemented by the previous government. We want to implement a program which is not elitist, which understand the struggles of common man on a day-to-day basis. Coming back to the housing program, which my friend was saying that is not in tandem with the manifesto of UDA or Kenya Kwanza.
I said with the Hustlers Fund. It's in the manifesto, so it's in tandem. But your explanation to me looked like it was emphasizing housing as a Hustlers Fund. But you can proceed, sir.
No. I never said it's a program. It's not a fund. But we will try and come up with a housing fund where every Kenyan, that's a fact. We will try and come up with a housing fund whereby we contribute, and after 7 years, you are free to pour up your money. You know, Kenya, the culture of saving is a big problem in this country. Tanzania, Uganda, and even Rwanda, a very young nation, is way ahead in terms of savings as Kenyans. The amount of money we have saved in our pension schemes and other schemes we have, you cannot compare with what Uganda and Tanzania have saved.
Yes.
So we need to do savings.
I think just before we move to that, I'll just say that saving you can only save when you earn. But we should really look at this. The so-called, I don't like calling it Hustlers Fund, but anyway, it is their name. I may not have much input into it, but this fund can help make young people be productive in our community. This fund, if well utilized, can help reduce our poverty levels. But as he's saying that these other funds have been taking an elitist approach. To me, most programs that are implemented by government, they want to take on a straight jacket or a blanket approach to solve issues that are very different and are very unique. Issues of a young person in Kakamega might be very different from a young person in Mombasa, or the business ventures or the models and the likes. And I've said that as government, look at all government lending systems, agencies. They have failed from, it was called AFC for farmers, to many others. They have failed. Why? Because it is not the duty of the government to lend and recover. The government should become a facilitator of doing this. And to me, for this model to work, the government has to work with financial institutions, one, to relax the rules, so that to remove the issue of elitism, having collateral and all that. And a number of institutions are already doing that. This fund to act as a guarantee. This fund to act as, to give waiver of interest. Like the president said yesterday, it would be 1 digit. No bank will lend with 1 digit. But this bank can lend with relaxed rules, everything, and monitor and reduce interest rate, which can be recovered from this. But then it will make the fund to function properly. And when I talk about financial institutions, I don't mean banks alone. We have microfinance institutions, we have SACCOs, we have SACCOs, but then they must prove that they are up to the task. What I will not advocate is for government to go and lend the money directly.
Gentlemen, let's shelve that one. Let's shelve let's close that one.
The most successful institutions in this country, in private sector, have been supported by the ASRAs, by the common man. Yeah. For instance, Equity Bank is one of the most successful banks we have within the region. Yeah. Its base is this informal sector. To mention the name, but the other most successful.
That's exactly what he said. Let us invest confidence in some of these institutions to manage the funds, and let government then play the role of just facilitating.
Correct.
Okay.
But also to look at the access of money from Equity Bank. Because Equity Bank will not just give you money.
Yes, there has to be
an account holder, and there has to be a deposit which you make into the bank. Before you make a deposit and you register, you must have a form that you fill.
You don't make it for you to be an account holder of Equity. You don't need to deposit anything.
And we are moving.
What I am saying,
we close that one. Yes.
What I'm saying, Linda, is that let the Hustlers Fund not repeat the same mistakes of access, availability, affordability. In fact, ahead of the elections, there was already a public participation process on what is called the Biashara Fund, which is very akin to what the Hustlers Fund.
You know what my friends are doing? They are casting aspersion to the Hustlers Fund when it's not implemented.
What
we can assure Kenyans.
Surprise us.
Yes. What we can assure Kenyans, if there is a fund which will be more, well administered, well structured, for the benefit of the informal sector of this country,
in fact,
is the Hustlers Fund.
Let me finish my point.
You can take that to bank.
Ahead of the launch on December 1st, we are going to have a platform between November ahead of that launch of the fund. And I want to extend an invitation to Mheshimiwa so that he can come and listen to the people. What we are doing is to strengthen your proposal. We are not pouring aspersions, and of course we also have a right to do so because we are the beneficiaries. This is a government program, and I think we should not, as I said earlier on, try to lock Kenyans one box. Allow people to be innovative, creative, and think outside the box, which you are right inside.
For this to be successful.
Exactly.
All right, gentlemen, I do not want us to talk about the fact that President William Ruto has decided to disband the crack police units. I think that is out here for debate. Because of the question of time, we might not delve much into it. And so for a moment, let's overlook it and think of the D-Day for CS nominees that we are supposed to have the processes of vetting happening, beginning today. Still questions linger as to whether then Honorable Musalia Mudavadi should go through the vetting processes and all this. There's someone who was saying, Honorable Mugabe, that perhaps just like we saw with the majority and minority matter, perhaps just like we saw with the finding of the speakers of the National Assembly and perhaps what happened with the Council of Governors picking their chair. We should save Kenyans from this whole matter because we are almost certain that all these that have been picked are going to get a clean bill of health.
I would have really wished that it is different this time round. And as a country, yes, we are growing in our democracy, in our governance, but there's still a lot that needs to be done. The independence of especially parliament has not been achieved. The executive still wants to use parliament as a rubber stamp for its issues. And worrying also is the love dalliance that we are seeing between the executive and judiciary, and to me, these are very dangerous red flags in our country. When you look at Article 152 of our Constitution, it's very clear. I'm not constitutes the cabinet. They talk of the president, the deputy president, then what called cabinet secretaries. a minimum of 14 and a maximum of
22.
So this issue of a chief minister, prime minister, and all that, it's not there. And during the campaign, they stated clearly that they will bring in legislation to Parliament in order to address that.
You need not to read this constitution in isolation. First of all, in isolation from itself, because within there, the constitution also, there's a clause that speaks of the fact that the president is allowed to, structure these offices. And therefore, perhaps in line with that, we cannot stand to say that, well, this prime minister or this chief minister position then should be rendered
you know, when we were pushing for BBI sometimes back,
they said
we're taking care of these issues. What did they tell us? That you are creating positions for individuals. We don't want to create positions. We don't want to change the constitution. We want to do ABCD. Now, the same things that you are criticizing, you're now coming in to do it.
But if this thing that you were trying to advance then is not achieved by you, but is achieved by a different government, is it not fair to just appreciate as opposed to castigate?
To me, it is very clear. We don't have that position in our constitution. We don't have it.
But the president has the power to as well proceed and set up such.
Let me say this: Musalia Mudavadi is a high-ranking politician of this country. Is a man who has served this nation with dedication. And
same applies to Kalonzo Musyoka and
Raila Odinga.
We don't dispute that.
Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, these are great men of this nation.
And that it would be bad to have a handshake with Raila Odinga and good to set up.
So, in his wisdom, Musalia Mudavadi saw it fit to work with the president in forming government. And that happened. The president has the powers vested in him by the Constitution and the people of the Republic of Kenya to restructure his government the way he thinks is good, to meet the aspirations of the people of the Republic of Kenya. Musalia Mudavadi is a cabinet secretary. It's only that he's a cabinet secretary who is high-ranking than the rest of the cabinet secretaries by the virtue of his contribution to the nation over the years, more than 30 years. Okay? So this issue, whether it is in the constitution or not, is a cabinet secretary who is senior than his colleagues. It's as simple as that. It's not a prime minister, as Raila Amolo Odinga was, and it was put in that agreement which they came up with Kibaki. Okay? Is a cabinet secretary first, but a cabinet secretary who can be able to guide other new ministers or cabinet secretaries on how to carry out their jobs of delivering the promises and manifesto of Kenya Kwanza coalition. It's as simple as that. And let me tell you, the vetting will be conducted by the...
So it's proper for him to undergo the vetting process?
Yes, it will be done. And when they come to the floor of the House, the speed at which the House will pass those nominees I
mean, that informed my question. Why take the members of parliament, the vetting committee through all this if we know that it's almost a fail?
He has said it right, that Musalia is a cabinet secretary, and I would have really wished that his name was brought for vetting as a cabinet secretary. What we are disputing is this thing called prime. Then after he's been vetted and passed as a cabinet secretary in line with the constitution, then in their own cabinet sitting, they can say, now, this person will be coordinating you people. The way Uhuru did with with Matiang'i. But you cannot.
But even
create,
before then, there was Tuju.
Don't create. But he was a cabinet secretary, just a cabinet secretary. You don't create a position that is not in the law. The constitution is very clear. It's very clear.
Let's talk about the cabinets. No. Let's talk about the cabinets. How is this a position that is not within the constitution? Because as well, also the naming of the cabinet then is a prerogative of the president. That's why he scrapped off the devolution.
Let me guide. For instance, the cabinet secretary. There is nowhere in the constitution where I said you appoint cabinet secretary information.
Yes.
Appoint cabinet secretary education. Is a cabinet secretary.
And I'm very
the other names.
It's the president.
It's the president.
So
Musalia Mudavadi has been given a cabinet secretary position dash prime.
Chief.
No. It is prime. It is prime cabinet secretary. And cabinet secretary prime. And that's why I was saying bring Musalia as a cabinet secretary.
And then Murkomen has been given a cabinet secretary position dash transport and infrastructure.
Yeah, now tell us Musalia is a cabinet secretary.
Yes.
For what?
But this what is what Mheshimiwa is talking about. This what is not indicated in the constitution. It is the president's prerogative to come up with this.
Bring him as a cabinet secretary.
That initially we're talking about Ministry for Finance
for guiding other cabinet, junior cabinet secretary.
Musalia Mudavadi. Don't call it prime cabinet.
No. Why not call it the prime?
Kevin Osido, initially we had Ministry for Finance and Planning. Today we have Ministry, Treasury and all that. And so what is in the name?
The name is nothing. However, if you look at the details around constitutionalism, there's something we normally call the letter and the spirit. So you look at what is actually written in the letter, because the letter is what you read in terms of A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z, black and white. The spirit is the implication. What are you implying? What are you foreseeing? What are you marrying between this letter and the spirit, like a soul and probably a mind or the heart? Yeah. In the issue of the name, I believe that the president was purely looking at the politics around what my co-panelists have described. Who is Honorable Musalia Mudavadi? What is his experience? Against the pre-election agreements. Maybe there could have been intentions in the implication of the spirit of the letter that you will be prime minister, which is partly why I think Mheshimiwa is talking about the BBI. But if you look at why prime minister, it has to go through a referendum because of the constitutional aspects of amending our constitution, 255, 256 articles, that you have to go to the people because that touches on the executive. Which is why I believe that most of the Azimio members of parliament are concerned. Because the constitution, if you look at Article 131, that talks about the authority of the president, 2 of it actually talks about respect and upholding. Respect, uphold, and safeguard the Constitution. There is no position called Prime Cabinet Secretary because the Constitution has a space for Cabinet Secretary. But when you bring in a person called Prime Cabinet Secretary, then you leave people out of who is this? How are we, on what premise are we vetting the person? Which is why there is now the requirement by the House Speaker that you make a ruling. And I'm sure that some of the things that we are saying here are actually going to guide what the Speaker is going to say. Of course, Mheshimiwa Mudavadi will be vetted. I don't foresee a scenario where Azimio will stop the vetting from going on. But we have to be also clear, Linda, about the kind of precedents that we are setting. Because you've mentioned former CS Raphael Tuju was a cabinet secretary with zero portfolio. Issues around Mheshimiwa Matiang'i. Of course, the word prime came from former President Uhuru Kenyatta and Dr. Matiang'i. If you go further and look at Article 132, even before I refer to 152 that talks about cabinet and the members of the cabinet, you of course have the functions of the president. And one of those functions is what the president did in Executive Order number 1 of 2022. It is already an executive order that as a president in exercise of my functions, this is how I want to run my government. So the prime cabinet secretary will be vetted based on the executive order of the president, which is also a legal mechanism.
Right.
So remember, the constitution is not just law in its nature like that. It has supporting legislations, which include statutes. It includes even standing orders of parliament. Those are legislative, aspects. Statutory deductions are legislations. That's why somebody can be sued for failure of paying taxes or paying, remitting your pay as you earn, etc. So I'm sure the Speaker, Mheshimiwa Wetangula, will be looking at what else can we use as Kenya Kwanza to support this issue, because Azimio has a right point, because the Constitution has no room for prime cabinet secretary. Right. But under the executive order number 1 of 2022, the president introduces a new cabinet secretary in the word of a prime. But I'm sure that the word prime is just in the naming, and also looking, as I said, in the personality of Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi. Not that he's more senior, like Mheshimiwa is saying that the others are junior. No, all cabinet secretaries are, I'm sure, colleagues. They are of equals. But further to that, as I finish, remember that the executive order also talks about the functions that Mheshimiwa Mudavadi will be discharging. One of those is delivery unit, the presidential delivery unit, which has been an agency under the office of the president. So what President Ruto is doing is elevating it from just being a directorate level to actually being a cabinet portfolio, where you can engage with the president directly as cabinet, without going to, book an appointment with the director. Then the director goes to the secretary to the cabinet to want to seek for the attention of the president. So this, in my view, is in order. I think the speaker will have to give Kenyans a very clear mechanism on how we are hinging this. But under executive order number 1 of 2022, I think the president has acted rightly in accordance to his authority and also his function.
Is the seniority aspect, where does it come in? Is it in the payment? Is it in the what it is that we call experience, or what exactly brings out this seniority?
My colleague here in Parliament will agree that even in Parliament we have senior high-ranking members of Parliament, and these are tradition of Parliament across the
and that's what Kenyans need to understand.
Across the country. You cannot compare the experience of first member of Parliament, or first term member of Parliament, with a member of Parliament who has been in the House for 5 terms.
You cannot compare.
You cannot. So there's that seniority which is recognized even in the House. It's the same thing. The seniority, in the cabinet of Musalia Mudavadi, compared to other cabinet secretaries. Okay? So yes, we are talking about the constitution, but there are traditional customs of running government, traditional customs of conducting business in the House.
Including
It's not only here in Kenya, but across.
Mheshimiwa, this very note, allow me to take a quick short break.
That's why the Senate in the United States, you'll find that some senators, when they stand to speak, everybody listen. Because
Linda, let's go for that way, because
and then we come back.
Correct something.
Yes, and then we come back.
That might be misconceived by the public. Yeah, that Mheshimiwa is talking about.
You are watching TV 47, the home of untold stories.
Limited wanakuletea bidhaa za plastiki zinazotumika kila siku maishani, kuanzia matumizi ya jikoni, usafi na shuleni, miongoni mwa matumizi mengine. Chakula kitamu sio upishi tu, kikiwa kitamu kisha kipakuliwe katika vyombo maridadi kinakuwa kitamu zaidi. Ndio maana Rock Industries Limited wanahakikisha mezani na jikoni kunapendeza kwa kukuletea vyombo maridadi vya plastiki. Vyombo hivi ni vya viwango vya juu, vyenye rangi nzuri ya kupendeza, umbo wa kuvutia na vinadumu. Baadhi ya bidhaa za plastiki kutoka Rock Industries Limited ni vikombe, vikombe, glasi, sahani, jagi, begi, bakuli, vijiko, vichana na kadhalika. Na bidhaa hizi muhimu zinapatikana katika duka lililo karibu nawe pamoja na maduka ya jumla kwa bei nafuu. Kwa maelezo zaidi, wasiliana na Rock Industries Limited kupitia nambari 0722575619 au 0736028181.
Watching TV47, the home of untold stories.
In here. And Honorable Geoffrey Kiringa Ruku is with us this morning, Member of Parliament Mbeere North, Innocent Mugabe, Member of Parliament Likuyani, and the Executive Director of County Governance Watch and Governance Expert Kevin Osido as well. Gentlemen, this is the very last lapse, and therefore we have to be conscious of time as we come to sum it up. So we say the aspect of seniority is as clear as, you know, this person has earned it, has been here long enough, has played this game long enough. It's got nothing to do with the handshake earthquake thing.
No.
Let's reward those ones that made the earthquake, and, you know, at least they guaranteed the 200 difference.
5 in the Kenyan political terrain over the years, 20 years, 30 years, it is not a walk in the park. These are men and women who should be respected by all Kenyans, whether it is Musalia Mudavadi, Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, William Ruto.
And respecting them is creating positions for them?
Not quite. Those positions are there to steer and guide this nation so that this country can remain the beacon of hope within the East and Central Africa region. These are the men who have steered this country in the past, and we need their guidance. As far as the Prime Cabinet Secretary position is concerned, I can repeat and say it is a Cabinet Secretary position, and the President deemed it fit to give it the title of Prime. But the bottom line, the common denominator, Musalia Mudavadi is a Cabinet Secretary who is senior than other members of the Cabinet.
Which Honorable Mugabe says is not a vision
I would really want to differ a little bit.
Yes.
It's not envisaged. There's no point in the Constitution we envisage that we'll have a Cabinet Secretary who is senior than the rest. What you are seeing this is purely politics. That if we give Musalia Mudavadi the post of a Cabinet Secretary, Mayor Cabinet Secretary, we will be lowering his political premium. So in order to accommodate him and his people and his demeanor and experience in politics, we create a position.
And you have to remember that this was negotiated even before.
Yeah, we pamper it with that name. And the only concern we have is the twisting. Yeah, we just you could call him Cabinet Secretary, then give him a title like coordinator or something. Yeah, but when you call it Prime, then it brings a lot of questions, and that's why we are debating it here, and also the Speaker has to rule on it. And as Azimio, we've raised our reservation. We have no any ill motive or anything against Honorable Musalia Mudavadi.
Those are just semantics.
But we don't have any issues with him.
We can call it like now, Alice Wahoma.
Call it. Just let me finish. We have a lot of respect for Musalia Mudavadi, especially personally, because he's also mentored me politically and all that. But let us stay to the spirit of the Constitution and what it envisaged. Call it, to me, I would be okay if Musalia Mudavadi is given a Cabinet Secretary, then the title is elevated than bringing in the word Prime Cabinet Secretary. But all in all, I would want to wish Musalia Mudavadi
all the best. That's all is going to go through the vetting process.
Going through the vetting process. We have a lot of respect to him. And we hope if this matter will be resolved by the Speaker today and it goes through, then it is well and good.
Linda,
yes.
Water Cabinet Secretary, Alice Wahome. Education Cabinet Secretary, Muchoku. So it's
Prime Cabinet Secretary.
Yes,
Mudavadi.
Mudavadi. So it's how you want to
look at it.
To look at it.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's look forward to the vetting process.
It is Cabinet Secretary in charge of water, in charge of...
Honorable Opio,
there's no in charge of prime, it is vague.
The leader of majority says it's not going to be an easy one, that they should be ready to, defend themselves, and especially if they have lots of debts, and debts in question of integrity and so many other aspects. And so I think we're looking forward to a very rigorous and vigorous process. How many times have we had CSAs and then we start questioning what was happening in the vetting process? I hope, Mheshimiwa, it's not going to be a sail-through, direct ticket without, the intense processes of vetting that are necessary.
These are very qualified Kenyans.
Oh, these are very qualified Kenyans, and therefore no need
to... Am I going to have my say?
As we sum it up.
I allow you to have a
as we sum it up.
With the honorable members. Because I can excuse myself, by the way.
Go on.
I can excuse myself.
As we sum it up.
You know I have done it before.
You know what Mheshimiwa was saying,
And I can,
let's accord them.
Excuse me, Linda. I can allow you to have a conversation with the honorable members.
Kevin Osido, if you realize, I was directing that question to you. So please sum it up.
And then you picked it up. I wanted to clarify before I respond to your question. When cabinet sits, we have cabinet positions and portfolios, and we also have cabinet members. There is no, within the cabinet, there is no one you can say is more senior as a cabinet secretary and a cabinet member than the other.
Yeah.
But if you look at the positioning, the portfolios, and also the experiences of the various members, then that is where the issue of seniority comes forward. So that
the dockets?
Yes.
The dockets?
Yes, those are what we call the portfolios in government.
Yes,
so
yes.
The dockets. So that Kenyans don't think that water, for example, is more senior than agriculture.
And I want to ask that question.
Yes.
Is it in order to consider some dockets more, superior than the others?
Of course it is. If you look at the budgetary allocations, if you look at the magnitude of involvement, it is in order. And a lot of times, even in the manner in which the president or the appointing authority reads the portfolios or the dockets, you can tell which one is more stronger, but not senior. So in terms of the dockets or the portfolios, you have superior dockets. But when CSS sit, and even if you look at how they sit in the cabinet meeting, they sit in order of seniority, not because you are more of an experienced politician or whatever, so that people don't think that Prime is more senior as a cabinet secretary than maybe CS for public service or CS for water and among others. But of course, I know that for Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi, because if you look at the pre-election agreement, which I have personally looked at, there were certain promises that were made, including 30% of cabinet sharing between ANC and Ford Kenya, among others. But of course, in addition to what Mheshimiwa Kiringa has said, you also look at the personality, the political personality of Mheshimiwa Musalia Mudavadi, which is probably why the speaker, and we're looking forward to that ruling, to look at how it goes. I don't see how it will add even a coin to what he earns as a CS, or the 924,000, of course, if you add all the other benefits that they have, mortgage, vehicles, security, etc. I don't think the word prime makes premium out of financial increment to what he will earn as a cabinet secretary. But that is based on what the speaker will say in form of a ruling, and of course the kind of let me call it the kind of lesson that we are learning as a country, that this is not in the constitution. So how do we navigate around it? But I like the fact that the president is setting up a pace. Remember, there is no minister of devolution. We are not talking about it. Yes. But a number of those functions have therefore been given to the deputy president, which initially was purely just a position as an assistant of the president, but without any more or less like a management or accountability docket. So what was your other question?
We said sum it as we sum it up. So we're supposed to give you parting shots.
So my parting shot is Kenyans are looking forward to Kenya Kwanza government to deliver on its promises. And I believe that the kind of energy that, as I said earlier on, that the president has is one energy that is going to really spur the other cabinet secretaries, even as they look forward to being vetted. I believe that he has assembled a team that, if properly inspired, if properly given the time that it will take, I look at most of those names. Of course, we said earlier on that his cabinet is much more of a political cabinet, not as a technocratic or full of technocrats. But we look forward to the government as an executive, as an arm of government, how it's going to deliver on those promises. And I wish all the best to the vetting the cabinet secretaries, even as I want to encourage Kenyans that beyond these national events that are going on, a lot is also happening at the county levels. We need to engage with the county integrated development planning process because that is the premise of the budget. So let's walk into those town hall meetings. Let's engage with our leaders. Let's write those memorandum documents. Let's engage on those petitions and ensure that our voices are counting even as we seek to make devolution to work.
Well put, Mugabe, as we sum it up.
Yeah, to me, I would say that Kenya as a country, we're growing democratically, and I would want to see, especially this 13th parliament, we try to be as objective as possible. Already we've seen a lot of influence from the executive coming in, and this would not be very good for our democracy. And to the committee on appointments, I also encourage them to be very objective. Kenyans are watching you, and as much as I know most of you would not want to differ with the president, I believe as a parliament, we have the mandate to help the president steer this country properly, and if there are any shortcomings, we raise them objectively. And so in this process, I expect a lot of objectivity from the committee. And I'm glad that our leader of minority has pledged that if there will be any differences, he'll also table a minority report in line as they table the majority report of the committee. He'll also table a minority report if there will be any they will not have agreed on a certain candidate. There will be the
major differences
or deviance from what they would agree as a committee, and we expect those reports also to come to the floor of the House, so that we also look at it objectively. And I would really wish that as a country and this parliament, we do justice to our democracy by being as objective as possible.
Well
Thank
put.
you. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, as we close it.
Yeah. One, opposition has started in a very nice note. We in government, we expect the opposition to criticize the government.
But you're telling them to relax.
Yeah. But I can assure Kenyans that we are going to be very proud of our President William Ruto for another 5 years. By the time we are coming to the second third year of his administration, I am sure Kenyans will be very happy with our president because he's determined, he's focused, he has the energy, he has the best interest of this country, and he has been at the bottom of the pyramid. He knows what is happening in every corner of this country. I'm not talking about towns, I'm talking about villages. He's going to lead a government which is going to protect the interests of every Kenyan, and we Kenyans, we are going to be very proud with this government.
Well, we're looking forward to that. Member of Parliament, Mbeere North, Geoffrey Kiringa Ruku, as well as Member of Parliament of Likuyani, Innocent Mugabe, and governance expert and Executive Director of County Governance Watch, Kevin Osido. Gentlemen, asanteni sana for the great insight. So much feedback. We appreciate your contribution and as well the fact that you've worked with us through this very session. We are crossing over to a different one on Matters Health, so don't you go anywhere.